Hey, my name is Vanity. I am getting ready to give you my review on a podcast that I had to watch for my Crim 101 course at Howard CC. Um, it was one to digest, is what I am going to say. Um, it can invoke emotion easily. Um, Hopefully, it will to a positive extent for some, but pretty much, I shout out to my professor for this assignment and extra cred because I definitely needed to see this, especially with the career path that I'm looking to head on. The podcast is on the New York Times. It's called The Kids of Rutherford County. Pretty much, it is a podcast narrated by um, Mayor Benight. Sorry, I wanted to get it right. And it's phenomenal, I must say. Because the thing is, we would have never known. Without this podcast, we honestly would have never known that this was going on. You're in your own state, you're in your own county, you're in your own city. You don't really consider, you know what's going on in some other places, but to what extent all the time. So in this case, it was the kids of Rutherford County pretty much was being locked up for anything you can think of. Absolutely anything you can think of. Pulling someone's hair. Um, 11 kids locked up for not doing something about other kids fighting. Anything, of course, smoking cigarettes, truancy, things of that nature. Like literally anything you can think of, these kids were being sent to the detention center to the juvenile detention center. I got some notes, of course, because this was a 4 episode podcast. Definitely worth the watch. I don't think anyone would be opposed to really learning and knowing what's going out there, especially when it comes to the kids, because they are our future. I have 3 of my own, so these type of things hit home when I know what the possibility could be if my kids would have turned out differently. Not and the sickest part. We'll get deeper in, but for sure the podcast is worth the listen. Um, this pretty much gives you insight into the criminal justice system and what things are being allowed and what things are happening to children that you would not have thought in your wildest dreams, because they're kids. So I'm going to summarize each episode, but I would love for everyone to take a look at this podcast. Take a listen to. Like I said, it's 4 episodes from the New York Times. Definitely worth the $4 to subscribe really quickly. Even if you cancel the subscription, it's definitely worth the read of the transcription, the listen to whatever it takes for you to get the information on it. So pretty much, like I said, there were 4 episodes. The first one was called The Egregious Video. It opened up with discussing a playground altercation that ensued between children, 5 and 6 years old. They were an 8-year-old boy walking away from an argument, and a 5-year-old hits him in the back of his head, and a bunch of kids were watching and recording and egging on and things of that nature. Being kids, of course. This video circulates. It goes to through the school, I guess, principals see it, things like that, teachers, but it gets to an officer. who this officer by the name of Officer Templeton, she pretty much felt that this was egregious, in her words. It was something that should not be tolerated. These children should not be standing around watching, and they should be punished for it. So pretty much, Officer Templeton pursued 11 children at an elementary school to punish them for not stopping, which some children were stopping the fight and were still arrested. They sent officers even after agreeing to not causing commotion when the arrest would happen. They sent officers in tactical vests to come and get these children out of class, and it was something that needed to be done. Of course, there was an officer there. Where there's always one, there's always one. There was an officer there who didn't agree with it. So he did everything he can to make calls to send us up the chain, like, hey, is there a way we can stop this? Long story short, it did not get stopped. I don't want to get too much into it, of course. I want you to watch it. But yeah, so these children were pretty much detained. They were taken to the system, taken to the detention center. It was 10 kids processed. One was released because they were arrested by mistake. So that was out of the 11 kids. 6 were released the same day. 4 boys kept overnight, and 2 stayed all weekend. So these are little children who were not fighting, who were not engaging in these altercations. Maybe 2 of them or 3 of them, if that, were actually in the midst of it. But the others were spectators. And she felt that it was pretty much criminal. It was criminal action for them to not attempt to stop what was happening, stop the fight, or even standing around and watching was criminal action. If in her perspective. When asked about it, she was just doing her job. So fast forward, second episode. So as this all ensues, you get some information on the jail of this particular detention center in Rutherford County, who is actually run by a judge named Judge Donna Davenport. Donna Davenport. Judge Donna Davenport. Slipped for just a second. But yes, Judge Donna Davenport is who is the judge of the system for the children entering the juvenile detention center, getting processed. So pretty much, episode 2 is called "What the Hell Are You People Doing?" It kind of opens up with this lawyer, young lawyer. I find out he's about my age. He had some trouble in his own life, so he's particularly familiar with the system as well. He is referred pretty much to the juvenile courts, saying they were saying there's always a job at the juvenile courts, and you soon find out why. So he goes in there. He gets his first case pretty much. Loses that one. Gets his next case. Loses that one. Gets his next case. Loses that one. Gets his next case. Loses that one. And it's pretty much it keeps going. It's not. He begins to realize that. Oh, let me back up. The first case, he actually went straight to the prosecutor. He went straight to the prosecutor, let them know, hey, this is the statute that I found. The prosecutor reviewed the statute in terms of why, what would allow a juvenile to be arrested and detained. She reviews the statute. She agrees, okay, well, your client can be released. This is his first one. Every client after that, pretty much, when brought before the judge, he began picking up more cases. The judge, Donna Davenport, will pretty much let him know, this child is a danger to themselves and the community, was her line to get these kids detained, returned back to jail. Pretty much, she continued with this case after case, even with him bringing this statute to her. And it just felt like a lose-lose for like ever. But he eventually gets a case with a young kid that is sent to what is called lockup. Lockup pretty much is what we know to be solitary confinement. They continue to use semantics to kind of get around the fact that no, that these kids, it's lockup. It's 23 and 1. 23 hours locked up, 1 hour out. And if within that 1 hour out, any time is interrupted or they're disruptive in that time, they return to the 23 hours. It resets. As you go through the episodes, you realize it gets more and more absurd. I initially thought that it would just be about the 11 kids in Rutherford County. In that one elementary school, you realize it's all of the kids in every elementary school, including kids coming to this detention center from other counties, and being appointed and being judged by this judge. It gets deeper into how this system was really set up by this particular judge, with the notion that these children needed to be corrected, and they needed to be mothered in a way, as she was referred to as the mother of Rutherford County. She was appointed in 2002. 2014 is when this happened with the 11 children. As Wes Clark, the young lawyer, went along, he pretty much ended up, he got he got acquainted with another lawyer that was pretty much on the same path as him, was getting in and out of trouble, addictions, things like that, facing things in life. But, still practicing law. They link up, and they pretty much go on a mission to figure out what the hell is going on. Because in several of Wes's cases, he notes that he looks around and he sees that everyone in the room is pretty much okay with what the judge is saying and what the judge is, her perspective on things. When it's kind of foolproof, but it's like as if everyone is already brainwashed. They've been here so long, and they don't want to go against the judge. This is her, as they say actually in the last episode. There's judges that claim this is their courtroom, and they may scoff at Obama's law of not being able to hold children in solitary confinement. So that's where it leads to pretty much. They get into where they start picking up these cases. They have the 11 kids of Rutherford County now. Prior to the 11 kids of Rutherford County, the elementary school altercation, they have a boy named Octavius. I want to say his name was. Don't quote me. And he was locked up for 23 hours at a time. the young guy gives his account in the third episode where tons of children, dozens of them, were giving their accounts of the experiences at the detention center. This is forward on to episode 3. And prior to that, in episode 2, they bring up the statute with the 11 kids. They begin to get more. They get an injunction at that point for them to stop using the system. Initially, they had her answer for what she was doing. So they pretty much link up. They go on a mission to, find out, what they can do to help. Quintarius was the boy's name, in terms of him being locked up for 23-1. They go back before the judge, Judge Davenport. She sends him back. She doesn't want to hear any of the evidence they have gathered and the law Obama has said and things of that nature. She shrugs off everything. Again, this is her court. They eventually file a complaint with the federal court. They file a complaint with the federal court, and the judge there gives them a win. They deem it unlawful for children to be locked up for 23 hours and 23 hours a day, or be put on lockdown. This particular case only applied to Quintarius, unfortunately, at the time. So they pretty much had to back to the drawing board. So they get the win. Pretty much they have now the case in front of them. The 11 kids land in their lap. They decided that they wanted to work for themselves. At this point, they didn't want to do juvenile detention anymore. They go searching for cases, get pulled right back in with the 11 kids. From there, episode 3 is when they feel like, boom, this is their ticket. This is their money maker. And the case that will set the precedence for Judge Donna Davenport's actions and what the terms would look like moving forward in terms of dealing with juvenile in the justice system. So episode 3 is called "Would You Like to Sue the Government?" They pretty much go on a mission to sue the government. So pretty much this case was going to be a moneymaker for them. They'll sue the police. They'll be able to get these kids some reparations type of thing. So pretty much they go on a hunt for evidence and things of that nature, and that's when they find that Judge Davenport has let the police department know, arrest at all costs. That's pretty much the gist of what she put in writing. Doesn't matter what they do, arrest them. And they were following orders, as the police department would say. They don't want to go against the court's orders. So that's pretty much how it runs down in the third episode. And into the fourth episode is when, called Dedicated Public Servant, where the injunction is granted at the end of the third episode for the end of what's called the filter system that they use for the kids coming in, which they would use the filter system to determine whether or not they will be held before they see a judge. In the normal system, adults are held, and then, they see a judge, and then they get given bond and things of that nature. So this pretty much kind of cut due process for them. It was a violation of due process for the children. After the injunction to stop the use of the filter system, the number of kids sent to jail dropped to 80. 80%. Um, dropped 80%. I'm sorry, like dropped 80%. Kids were not getting locked up as much as they were. So there was this lawsuit now, $11 million, that was agreed upon. These were poor kids. These were kids in poverty, parents in poverty, amongst the thousands of kids that were incarcerated, some statute of limitation up, some no address, evicted already, not able to find them. Overall, 278 kids received the payout of this $11 million, which was only 23% of them that was jailed. $5 million was paid paid in total to the children. 3 million went to the lawyers, 2.5 to the kids in particular, and the county kept about $6 million. Yeah, one kid had 10 claims. That was what their meal ticket was supposed to be. They couldn't find this kid. It was kind of a show, for lack of a better term. It was not at all as Wes would soon describe it. It was a win in the sense that it did set the precedent that this is unlawful. This type of activity for juveniles being pretty much treated as adults do in their system, and we'll get to that. It's disgraceful, distasteful, and it should be ended. Which it was. The system, the filter system, was supposed to be ended, but somehow more kids, more and more kids were being arrested. So it didn't really give too much of an effect in the sense that these children, all the while Judge Donna Davenport was on the bench, was continually being jailed for the pettiest of offensive. And these are children, we're talking about 6, 7, 8 elementary school children. Not many teens was mentioned, was the craziest part about it. So that was the summary of each episode. Episode 4 closed out with there were interviews of others that worked with her, and even an interview she did, they were pretty much praising her. They were praising Judge Donna Davenport on the great work she did. They agreed with her system to make sure to keep the community safe. So the controversy around whether or not she, was exploiting these children, and definitely whether it was a money grab, a power trip, it was so complex to the point where it had to be talked about. It's ludicrous. It's not something that sits well with many people. So once it hit the press that this is what's going on in Rutherford County, she pretty much ended up stepping down. She steps down with her pension intact. 7 months after she announces, she continues. She's allowed another 7.5 months stay of judging, and there were no consequences for any of the authorities who participated in these egregious actions. But, that is our justice system. I honestly am not all the way surprised, sadly, because of things I've seen in the news, of things I've experienced with others, and it is something that it is completely repulsive to ever have these children in jail being searched. 16-point searches, spreading their cheeks. They are given cell blocks with a toilet, a bed, a metal frame, mattress, a sink. If they are sent to lockup, if they are in lockup, everything is stripped out their room. Apparently, the young gentleman who was in 23 and 1, he had a Bible and a cup of water. Sounds familiar. Sounds very, very familiar to adult prison. It's not... It's not, sadly, not at all surprising all the way in the sense, because this has been the system for human beings along the way of the growth of America, sadly enough. This happened 2014, we're only in 2025. I, for my Criminal 101 class, do have a text that I, reference in terms of the criminal justice system and the juvenile detention process. Criminal Justice in America is the text. Chapter 14, Juvenile Justice. It pretty much, in the text, pretty much it just runs down the beginning to end of the process of the juvenile justice system and the number of kids that are incarcerated all the time for whatever actions may be. It's pretty much sad that it's no different from adult jail. They can even be, it's what's called given a waiver, where the kids are transferred to adult jail. They have children on life without parole. It's where it was overturned to the point where the children that were given that sentence had to be resentenced because it was found as cruel and unusual punishment, as the same with the child being held in solitary confinement. 800,000 delinquency cases each year is absurd. There's no reason for that many children to be put in the system annually. The chapter pretty much covers the youth crime in America and the development of it, and pretty much where America has come from and gone to in terms of the juvenile criminal justice system. The rights of the the rights of juveniles in the system, and pretty much the periods in which they different growths or different the turnarounds happen throughout the system are noted. What stood out to me most, of course, they go over the age of the kids in the system and the things that they have to endure during the process. But on page 467 of the text, it's kind of, it was a significant takeaway for me because of what happened in Rutherford County. And it said pretty much that the court was used as parents. It names the courts as parents, pretty much where kids are taken away from their homes, and not because they're being neglected or not taken care of because they're poor, because they're in poverty, and these courts feel that they are the ones who are required to step in for the welfare and well-being of the children. When ultimately these children are suffering far worse being in this system. A lot of the kids that were incarcerated began to see themselves as inmates, as criminals. They now felt like they were criminals, and they couldn't get the stain off of them. So it's obvious that the rehabilitation or whatever Judge Donna Davenport thought she was doing was not what was truly happening. So in the text, that part was kind of alarming to me, because it showed that maybe that was her nature. With my own research, I wasn't able to find whether she had any kids or not. So, with my own speculation, I'm thinking, could her nature be? They claimed that it wasn't a money thing, which I feel like the whole system of the detention center is a money grab, of course, locking up that many kids. But she had a power trip, ultimately, is what it's claimed to be. And my thought is, could it be her not having children and, these courts being confused, getting to that extent? The life without parole stood out to me greatly. It wasn't these, and they didn't want to let these kids out to better themselves. They wanted to keep them in to continue to torture them, is what it honestly gave. I myself feel like the juvenile justice system needs a complete revamp. There are laws that definitely need to be put in place for authority to not overstep their authority, especially when it comes to children. And it needs to be specified the cruel and unusual punishment of children is grounds for reprimandment, to be reprimanded. It's sad because it's almost as if they don't expect anything to get better. A big part of the text that stood out to me, very last sentence on page 485. Thus, recent changes in the court's composition could lead to the reinstatement of the death penalty or mandatory life without parole sentences for juveniles. In some states, if a newly appointed justice votes to change the law when the issue arises in a new case. That's completely absurd to me. To even think to bring those back is, and loosely saying based on if there's a new judge appointed or a new legislation appointed that does so. It's almost as if it's not taken as serious as it should be. These children are literally facing what adults are facing in jail. They cannot begin to comprehend what is going on. This young boy was in jail saying he didn't even realize he was in jail. These kids, they are children. They're moldable. Their brains are, it's plasticity. They're ever changing. They're not where they will be years from now. They should be allowed to make mistakes. They should be allowed to pull someone's hair. Granted, no one wants to be harmed, but it's not, there's not many things serious enough outside of murder that a child should be held for. As far as I'm concerned, there are things that can be done. In my opinion, more diversion, no detention. Let's counsel these kids. If we really want rehabilitation, it can happen at home and in facilities. We can have counselors and psychologists and therapists and big brother and big sister networks come out and mentor these kids. It's a strong possibility, a greater possibility that they will turn out better than if you are setting them in these cells where they are literally losing their minds, their young minds. that at that age, 9 and 10 is an imperative age where once they get certain information, a lot of things in certain ways about them, a lot of things stick with them for life. So when you put them in these type of situations that are not nurturing, that are not elevating to their mental and stimulating into where they can learn something new outside there, where they can actually be rehabilitated, it's detrimental and it's counterproductive. So the detention aspect and what these courts allow right now, definitely needs to be revamped and needs to be investigated. If I were to give you a call to action, I'm telling you, there's so many things you can do. So many things you can do if you feel the desire to address these issues. Make your voice heard. Make your voice heard. We can start by actually go listen to the podcast. If you listen to that podcast, you will understand greatly. I wanted to give you more. I'll give you every detail, but you're gonna. I contained a lot. I contained a lot of emotion. I had to reel it in because I couldn't believe it. It was repulsive, absurd on some parts. It's worth the listen for sure. Start with listening to the podcast. Do your research as well. You can see that the judge stepped down in 2022. Just 3 years ago. Pension intact. No one reprimanded. One gentleman in episode 4 was saying, why do we keep discussing it? Why keep rehashing it? Because it's still happening. It's still happening. So, of course, do your own research, form your own opinion. Again, if you feel the desire to address these issues, there's actions you can take. Call the media. You can call the media, tweet. Social media is a monster and can make things happen. We've seen it. Definitely get online and share your thoughts, whether it be in blogs, contacting the Attorney General, numbers there's several numbers out there of different authorities that you can contact in terms of filing a complaint on the detention center and the system in general. Lobbyists, legislators, things, people you can reach out to, your senators in your county, your senators of your state. There's numerous avenues that you can take just to bring the attention to the juvenile justice system as a whole, because these children deserve better. If this is what's happening, you can imagine the number of children that we can look forward to in the future that are criminals. In my opinion, the detention centers actually create these criminals even worse. Yeah, like I said, you can contact Tennessee, even Attorney General directly, file your complaints. My goal would be more diversion in counseling, less detention and degradation. It's absolutely absurd what these children and their families had to deal with in Rutherford County. This podcast was definitely one for the books, and I am grateful to Professor Grant for giving me this assignment, because without it, I probably would have never known. I myself am interested in law and serving in the criminal justice system. But with this podcast alone, I think the juvenile justice system may be a name for me. Comment below. Let me know if you get a chance to take a look at the video. Take a listen to the podcast. It's definitely worth it. And Yeah, thank you for listening. Have a great evening.